Well, thank you, Jeffrey, for having us. It's a pleasure welcoming you to the audience here in Guatemala.
Well, I was looking to make a movie that could help vulnerable children, and when I read the book, I read it in one sitting, and I was literally in tears. It was so um, you were in this girl's head, and you saw everything through her eyes. It was a very powerful experience reading the book. It's a beautifully written book, and as soon as I read it, I realized this would make a really powerful movie, and it was the kind of movie that I wanted to make because I was looking for something that could really globally make a difference for children who were at risk, who were being exploited, who were being, used. Sold for me was an experiment. How much can one film accomplish in the real world? And it's an ongoing experiment. We're still doing many things with Sold. We built 86 classrooms after the earthquake in Nepal. One of the things that happens with trafficking is if a girl is not educated, she's much more vulnerable. If you educate a girl until she's 16 years old, the chances of her getting trafficked drop 80%. So this is a huge problem globally, especially in vulnerable rural villages and in sort of disenfranchised communities of indigenous people often. In India, they're called the Dalit people. Often they're darker skinned. So racism is a real part of the trafficking issue because people feel like they can exploit someone other than themselves. Trafficking is a multi-billion-dollar business globally. It's very well organized. Criminal cartels have organized this all over the world. There's weapons that are illegally disseminated. There's drugs that are illegally disseminated, and human trafficking it's like it. When I started making the film, it was the third largest illegal crime globally. I think it's 300 billion a year is estimated to be made on human trafficking. And now it's the second largest illegal crime. It will be the first largest globally because there's more people who can be exploited because there's more refugees. There's more people who are vulnerable globally. There's food vulnerability. There's wars. All of this creates a very ripe terrain for traffickers to go in and exploit, and they do. Traffickers often know where the victim lives, and they threaten their families, as well. So the families can be involved. Like the girl might be talked into doing this so that her family isn't killed. Education as a preventative to trafficking, just regular education is very empowering to women and girls, and that's really important. But I think what we have to start doing globally, and we're working on doing this in California now, is creating a component within the educational system that tells girls that this danger is out there and that tells their parents that this danger is out there. Anyone can be trafficked. You could be, typically you're trafficked from a vulnerable village where the family is poor, they have too many kids, they don't necessarily speak the common language of the land, or they're taken to another land where they don't speak the language. There are many ways in which traffickers work. Sometimes they marry the girl, sometimes they seduce the girl, and the girl falls in love with the trafficker. Sometimes it's a woman who is the trafficker who offers a job, and they're fooled, they're duped. Parents are duped. Sometimes parents are given a small advance, and in India, often, and Nepal, they'd say, we want your daughter to come with us to work as a domestic servant for this very nice, very wealthy family. And she'll make a good living, she'll be fed, and they're talking to a family that doesn't necessarily have the food to feed her. So they're that level of poverty often. And so the family wants the best for their children. They want all of them to eat. And so they think, okay, this is a good deal, and they're offered some money, and then they're fooled, and they never see their daughter again. There are all these stories of families searching for their daughters in India and, not being able to find them after they've been taken in this way. We have trained 30 women in India who are survivors of human trafficking to be healers of the trauma that trafficking victims have. It typically, girls and women are broken down, much like the way you saw the girl in the movie. She never broke, but most girls break. Their will is broken, similarly to training a horse. They're beaten until they submit, or they're raped until they submit. And so there's a trauma that they carry after they've been rescued, which is internal, which is a fear. The traffickers are very good at instilling fear to control their victims. And so that fear needs to be healed. So we've trained a lot of people who are survivors themselves, and now we're deploying them all across India, and now we're about to train another group in Nepal of survivors to heal survivors in Nepal. And the staff of the safe houses, all the people that do the rescues, the NGOs, often the staff, some of them are survivors, but often they get traumatized by hearing the stories. So they need these sort of resilience programs and this training that we deliver as well. And then the other thing we do is we teach vocational skills and offer jobs to survivors, because without a job, they're utterly vulnerable again. So what we're doing is we're creating communities of empowered survivors, because I really feel like they've been in that fire and they're the ones who are going to be the major change makers globally. If communities, especially vulnerable indigenous communities, can create jobs, whether they're craft jobs or farming or agricultural jobs, where everyone is raised up, the community becomes less vulnerable. When it's very, very poor, it's incredibly vulnerable. Whoever goes to that village can bring also the information that traffickers work in this way. Traffickers continually change the way they work and the lies that they tell. So you have to stay current with that. There are great journalists who go around the world and create comic books, so you don't even have to read. And that tell how the trafficker will work. And these comic books could be read. A lot of the time, theater is used in remote villages, or like we translated our film into Bengali, Hindi, and Nepali, and the first 10 minutes are being shown in rural villages all over India and Nepal. For the world to survive, for humanity to survive, I think it's critical that that women come into a much more empowered position in politics, in jobs, in all economic sectors, in filmmaking. Women need to balance the out of balance patriarchal system of the world. And a lot of this has happened, for thousands of years, because the patriarchy has set up to exploit those who are poor. And we need to, rethink and rework and work together. Women and men have to work together. And the thing is, a lot of the pimps and traffickers who are male have been brutally exploited themselves, violently dealt with as children, raped often. So compassion is needed even there. This is such big business that governments are being corrupted and being bought by cartels of traffickers. The drug cartels are also often the trafficking cartels. They're just different verticals in their businesses. The thing about drugs and weapons is you can only sell them once, but a girl you can sell many, many, many times, and you can move her around. A lot of the girls who were trafficked are very vulnerable to AIDS, HIV, and this is also a huge part of this issue, is people are dying on a massive scale, because of this. There are many, many things that we as people can do. It's really it's astounding, the connections that every one individual has. And if you become impassioned about this, there's so much that you can do and accomplish. But I suggest you accomplish it with your friends, with your community, with your religious groups. Reach out to the people you know and get educated. Reach out to those who are already in the trenches doing the work on this issue and support them. Learn more. I am always learning more about this issue and will be working to help freedom for people in Nepal and India for probably the rest of my life. But there's so much that one person can accomplish when you just have the intention and you don't let go of the intention, and you bring others into the process. This film is a tool. It was created as a tool to bring light into the darkness. This is a topic people don't like to look at, but it's critical to bring a candle into the darkness because it's the only thing that'll change things, is bringing light into the darkness. I think Martin Luther King said, you can't fight darkness with darkness, only light can do that. And you can't fight human trafficking with hate and anger. Only love will change it, and compassion. And if you can bring your heart to this issue, it's incredible and virtually unlimited what you can accomplish. Well, first of all, I'd like to thank all the global shapers involved with this video. I'd like to thank all of you in the audience for bearing witness to this difficult issue. Just the fact that you're sitting here and listening to the conversations, that you're bearing witness to the NGOs that are working in this area where you live, that's huge. Create connections between yourself and those NGOs, because that will really support their work and deepen their work, and do whatever you can to make our world a better place. There's so much work all of us need to do. And I thank you for your heart and for your willingness to be a bearer of light.